of what it was like growing up in an Italian family in New York. And I'm going to put on my Italian hat that I got in Sicily. So it all started in 1935. Tony and Mary Bruno brought into this world a beautiful young baby, Rosalie Lee Bruno. At that time, we lived in Corona, Long Island. They rented an apartment above a Swiderski's convenience store. And that convenience store at that time sold anything. It was like a general store. Early education, Ro and my sister Fran went to PS 19, and they were absolutely the greatest students and avid readers. They spent most of their time at the library, and they enjoyed going out for Italian ice at the local bakery. And even after I came along, I remembered that bakery and going there for that treat. About that time, it was the 1939 World's Fair, and my aunt lived down the street. She had an old Victorian house, and I heard the stories about them sitting on the front porch and watching the fireworks from the 39 World's Fair. But after I came along, my parents said, oh, it's enough, we got to get out of this area, and they looked for a house on Long Island. My father was kind of not very good with making changes like so we moved to Douglaston in 1947. I was born in 43, and Ro and Fran attended St. Anastasia School. Fran and Ro again were top of their class. I was somewhere in the distance. And I remember the early days. Ro was in 8th grade, and I was like probably, what, 1st or 2nd. And the nun would give me a note and say, go up, give this to the nun in 8th grade.
Get your sister.
That's what?
Get your sister.
Get your sister. And it was like, are you sure you're in the same family?
No, I have to add this. The door would open, and this little head would go across, and you couldn't see him. I mean, you just knew he was walking by. You couldn't see him. He was that little.
Yeah, I was pretty small. So I don't know what she would send home to my mom, but it really didn't do much good anyway. And again, Fran and Ro were really good academically and very good readers, and when we moved to Douglaston, they spent most of their time at the Little Neck Library. In those days, stores and business places decorated their windows using crepe paper, I think you might remember, and kind of they did their own thing. And Ro was very good craft-wise, so they hired her to decorate the window in the library. And that was her first business adventure. So she got 25 cents for each poster she made advertising whatever the upcoming event was at the library. And I remember, I think I remember one time Mom and Dad saying, you know, you're doing too much work. You got to ask for a raise. So she went back and they upped it to 50 cents for a poster.
Yeah, doubling your
Even when we
wages.
lived in Douglaston, both sisters were very good craft-wise, and around the holidays, we had the best decorations on the block. They would paint the windows with all sorts of Christmas scenes, and it was just really fabulous. At one point, my parents decided we got to introduce music to these kids, so they went out and they bought a piano. Okay, so first one to take lessons was Ro. She became instantly a great pianist. And the local club that was in the area had a concert, and Ro was featured as one of the pianists at that concert, and she really was, was fabulous. So my mother said, "Okay, Fran, maybe you should take piano lessons also." And Fran said, "No, I'm not interested." So I said, I'll do it. So the nuns in the local Catholic school were the ones who taught the piano lessons, and it was 50 cents like a half hour. So I used to go there every year, and I could tell the nun was getting frustrated. About a month. So one day she hands me an envelope with a note in it to bring to my mother, and it was the 50 cents back. With a little note saying, "You better use your money on something else." But when we were living in Douglaston, growing up in an Italian family, the girls had to do all the work.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do. I'd go fishing, I'd do anything I wanted. I had to bring the trash cans out. But every Saturday, Ro and Fran had to clean the whole house.
Oh.
And they had, they would listen to the radio,
The top
the
100.
top 100.
Yeah, we cleaned that house to the 100 songs and then stop.
And that's and I would be off at the lake fishing. The radio, interesting story about the radio, is my mom was an avid baker and she cooked, and I used to like to watch her cook. I think that's where I learned a lot from her. But she entered the Betty Crocker Bakers Contest every year. And never won. All of a sudden, one year she gets this letter. She goes, "Tony, I hit it. I think I hit it." Well, she won a little radio. Of course, it was like one of the constellation prizes. But that was the radio, the Crosley. I remember a little white radio. It used to be on the bookshelf, and you used to listen to the top 100 every Saturday on that. Then in '51, Ro went to Bishop McDonald High School, and it was a 2-year stint there. Fran, I think, stayed for the full 4 years. And then you went to St. Mary's after that. Again, when she was in St. Mary's, she was top of the class. The only thing I heard about is they used to torture the nuns. They used to play all sorts of pranks on the nuns.
We would take the ends of balloons
Yeah.
and blow on them.
Oh.
Poor little old nun would.
They wouldn't know where it was coming
No,
from.
they wouldn't know what it was. They thought we had cold.
And didn't you all put your gym shorts, your gym outfits on backwards one
Yes.
time? And to drive this senile old nun crazy? The second major employment Ro had was at Louis Sherry in Manhasset, and it was a restaurant, but they specialized in candy. And so she was one of the candy girls, and she stood behind the counter and she'd give free candy away to all the friends who used to come in.
And when the boys came in to ask for candy, we would put whipped cream on top of the chocolate. No, excuse me, shaving cream.
Oh.
On top of the chocolate. They thought it was whipped cream.
Then in '53, Ro entered Fordham University, and she was a commuter student. And there was many nights where she'd say she was studying late at the bars in the Bronx. And that era was after Korea, and a lot of the students there were on the GI Bill. And she met a lot of nice people who she had a lifelong friendship with, and that's where she met her first, I guess,
Boyfriend.
Patty O'Leary.
Patrick O'Leary.
And,
Haven't heard of
An
that
Irish
before.
boy.
Patrick O'Leary.
and then the Dunleavys, remember you, the Dunleavys? And Pat, one time I remember they were out late, and he took Ro home, and by the time he got her back, the buses stopped running, the trains stopped running, so he had to stay for the night. And my father gets up the next day and he sees this skinny Irish kid in his pajamas. So that was kind of interesting. And,
Well, what happened? What happened?
Nothing. Dad, that's how Dad was. I mean, he would resist certain things, but when you kind of presented it to him, he would just kind of back off and accept. And then Roe's first job was with Shell Oil, and that didn't last too long because it was a bunch of engineers and they didn't speak the same language, and she wasn't really interested in that. And at that time, she felt it was time to leave home. Well, if you're in an Italian family, you didn't leave, if you were a girl, you didn't leave home until somebody proposed to you. And Dad resisted that. And I remember one time she said to me, "Can you help me move?" And I said, "Well, Tommy just got a car, we can rent a trailer." So we went to whatever it was, I don't know, and rented a trailer and moved her out before my father got home. And he came home, and again, he was faced with reality. There was nothing he could do about it, and so that was her.
Accepted it.
That was her first apartment, and then in '58, Roe with a couple of her friends decided to, see the world, and they took the Holland American line and went on a trip to Europe, and it was Pat Tormey and Carolyn Paget. And I remember going, at that time they used to have bon voyage parties at the boats, and I remember going there, I don't know, I was in high school, and I was the bartender. And they had all this champagne, and I was, giving out champagne to everybody, and then after I drank probably too much I should have, I went out and found another bon voyage party to go to, and I heard the whistle on the boat, everybody leaving, and my father finally found me and threw me in the back of the car for the trip home. And you probably heard the rest of it from Baird, and then, it was off to Time magazine and an illustrious career, but that was the early days in growing up in Douglaston. It was a good time. It was really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, great. Thanks,
Sarah, I didn't know you could bartend.
Okay, who's
Don't
next?
make tricks.
Who wants to volunteer?
I'll go. I need to scan everyone.
Oh, she's got notes too.
I can't hear it. There's no way to do it without notes. All right. We often take for granted those that mean the most to us. And time passes without ever letting them know. My words today are meant for you, Aunt Ro, to tell you what you mean to me. As we progress through life, sometimes there are people other than our parents that truly influence who we become as adults. Aunt Ro, you are that person for me. A young child's world is often quite small, limited to the town we live in, and the beliefs, values, and opinions of our parents, teachers, and immediate peer group. Even then, as a young girl growing up in Delaware, I knew Aunt Ro was different than my friends' aunts. She lived way far away from me in California, worked for magazines whose names I saw on newsstands, traveled the world, had a habit of buying and renovating homes, owned a beach house, built a successful business. I was always present in my life despite the distance. She did all this as a single woman, which in the 1970s was not the norm. I have an early memory of being in elementary school and Aunt Ro arriving at the school for some sort of function in a long fur coat and being recognized for coming the furthest to attend the event.
That's right.
By the way, that picture was in Karen's slideshow, and I would like a copy of it because I don't even have that picture. That fur coat made you cool, but being present in my life, even when it was not simple by proximity, meant a lot. I cannot remember what the event was that day, but I remember how you made me feel special. I am eternally grateful for the values you instilled in me. I watched you take Tony under your wing, raising him as your own without a second thought. I watched you care for Grandma and Grandpa, allowing them to thrive with age. At the age of 15, when my world turned upside down after Mom's stroke, you were present even more to lean on, not only for myself, but the whole family. This time also coincided with the start of what I finally think of as Cape Cod summers. Your new second house at 707 Orleans Road started as another exciting renovation project for you and weekly family summer vacation spot for Dad, Karen, Pam, and me. I had I written there, and Pat told me that it was incorrect grammar. And I said, Aunt Ro always catches me on that. I do not think any of us could have imagined at the time the importance of what it would become. Initially for me, Cape Cod was an escape from a time in my life that was very difficult. It grew into a gathering place for all of us to spend time together as we got older, married, had kids of our own, and life pulled us in different directions. It was really a second home to me with you at the center. I miss that home, but know that while those walls house many great times and memories, it is family that made it special. We once again find ourselves drawn back to the Cape, but this time for a very special celebration. Happy 90th birthday, Aunt Ro. Thank you for all your guidance, love, and support.
Guess I'll go. Well, I'm not the only one that's gonna be reading. So, my Aunt Ro has known me for 57 years, but I can't say I remember all of them because I was too young for a lot of it. But some of my earliest memories of Aunt Ro are her coming to our house for the Christmas holiday. When we were little kids, we'd always anxiously anticipate the fun toys that we would get, and the shape and size of the boxes was usually telling. Aunt Ro would always show up dressed like she just stepped out of a business meeting with gift boxes that we knew immediately were not the fun toys. Instead, they contained not so fun clothes that were usually a miniature version of what she was wearing and would itch us like crazy because they were made out of a high wool content. I also remember her taking me shopping at Bamberger's in the Concord Mall when I was about 12 to buy a wine-colored velvet suit jacket to go with one of the plaid wool skirts that she had given me as a gift. Despite her questionable choice of children's gifts, I always admired her professional appearance and business success. I looked up to her and wanted to be successful in my career and to be able to take care of myself as an independent woman, just like her, regardless of whether or not I ever got married. I was also always very impressed by her interior decorating abilities and hoped to one day have a home like hers. I have many fond memories of visiting her at the various homes she owned over the years. One Christmas, she flew us out to California for a visit. That was always a lot of fun. We were little. It was, I think, maybe some of our first trips on the plane. And then you could walk around and the stewardesses would let us help them serve the mitts, the after dinner mitts. That was when you actually got a meal. Yeah. And we had fun at her house. She had a hot tub, and we loved playing in the hot tub despite the skunk that lived underneath. And we also enjoyed helping to take care of her dog Freckles, who was not as lucky in avoiding the skunk as we were. It was probably due to Aunt Ro and my mom that we got to go to Disneyland in California, because my dad's not a big fan of amusement parks and crowds, so that was our only Disney experience as children. When I was older, I was particularly blessed to be able to spend a couple of entire summers living with Aunt Ro. One summer, she got me a job in the graphic design department at Knapp Communications in Los Angeles, where she worked at the time, and she got my cousin Tony a job in the mailroom. And she would drive us, because we were too young to drive, so she would drive us back and forth on the Los Angeles freeway. We would watch all the people putting on makeup and shaking in the car while we were driving and joke around. And it was, we had a lot of fun together, bonding those summers. And we would play pranks on one another. During my time with her, particularly in California, she took me to Tijuana, Mexico for the day, where I had bought, among other things, a ring that was sold as genuine but turned green. Good thing she also taught me how to negotiate, not pay full price. And that summer she also taught me what a quesadilla was and how to make one, though that became a new lunchtime favorite. And she and Tony were there to support me when I got news that our cat Pepper had died. She was very excited when her number came up in the ticket lottery for the Olympics, and she even ended up getting the opportunity to purchase so many tickets that she was able to sell her diving tickets to a friend who didn't get anything in the lottery. And it was a great experience to be able to go with her. She took Tony and I both to the track and field, and then Tony, she also had opening and closing day, and Tony chose opening day. I got the better end of the deal because I got to see Lionel Richie and he had to listen to the president. And we said there was fireworks, and closing day was great. It was an experience you always remember, I'll always remember, and something that I always remember being with Aunt Ro. Another summer, she got me a job in a local design studio in Westport, and I spent another summer living at her house, and we had a lot of good times together. Ro always supported and encouraged us with our education and careers. She shared her "you can do anything you put your mind to" philosophy with us, and encouraged us all to go after our dreams. As our high school graduation gift, she paid for all our college books, and in my case, it was a lot of art supplies. When our mom suffered a brain aneurysm, Aunt Ro was there and did everything she could to help my dad and the three of us. At one point, she thought we could all use a vacation and took us to an old Victorian hotel in Spring Lake, New Jersey, which likely still had some of the original guests roaming its halls. Spring Lake turned out to be a little too relaxing. You know, teenagers can only rock in chairs on the front porch for so many hours, especially when it's a haunted house. It may have been after this trip that she started visiting Cape Cod regularly. The next trip she took us on was to a house in Gloucester, Mass, where we sat in the hot tub on the deck out back and looked at the great harbor views. And then after that, she started inviting us to houses up and around Chatham, Massachusetts, here on the Cape. And then eventually she purchased her own Cape Cod house. And because of her desire to share the peace that Cape Cod brought to her with us, it became a place we all felt at home. Thanks to her, we would all spend quality family time together there for the next 20-some years, all while a new generation was welcomed into the family. Ro has been there, along with my dad, for all the milestones in my young adult and adult life. She has been at my graduations. She took me shopping and purchased my bridal gown. She hosted bridal showers and baby showers. She helped with my wedding plans. She learned the tricky process required to bustle the train on my wedding gown. She hired someone to make all the skirts for my bridesmaids after Grandma took on more than she could handle. And she came to take care of me and my children after they were born. I have silly pictures of her holding Anna with a birthday hat on when Anna was only 1 week old. Ro insisted we have a 1-week birthday party for Anna, which essentially meant cake for us. I could go on, but I won't. Being able to look back on things, I believe there is a reason she did not have her own children. God had other plans for her. Those plans were me, Pam, Kathy, and Tony. No one can replace a person's mother, but some people can love like one. Aunt Ro, you have no shortage of the love and compassion of a mother. Thank you for sharing that with me and always being there. I love you.